All right, good news and bad news for this one. Good news is I have the perfect shirt to wear for this review, and I'll never have another chance to wear this shirt for a review, most likely ever again. Bad news is, look, I overestimated my body. When I was in New York, I bought it as a small, so we're a little scrunch boy here, but this fits the review. We're doing the review.
Welcome to America.
And today we have The Brutalist. And I know what you're thinking. I know what you probably heard. You're like, how good can this movie possibly be? And then you go online and you're like, 3.5 hours. Like, the highlights have probably been, you've heard this film is a 3.5 hour long film with an intermission, a story about a immigrant architect who is seeking asylum in America, essentially, and trying to make a new start of his life, and hopefully have his wife join him, and serendipitously be contracted to make a structure in his architectural style, which is funny enough, a personal favorite of old MovieMan's here, Brutalist, or Brutalism, however you want to go about it. But I can't quite tell you why I like Brutalist architecture so much. I'm blaming it on Control, the game Control, I guess. I mean, personally, I love like Gothic and Art Deco above that, but something about Brutalist, when done in a certain, stylized way, really gets my gears going, Yeah, let me just say, this movie is worth the hype in many, many ways. I'm going to jump right in, give you the basics real quick, tell you what I think and why I would highly recommend it. The Brutalist, it's another A24 joint. Technically, this is what pisses me off. The Brutalist is a 2024 release. That's real talk, that's what it is. But hit national theaters for us, this year, 2025. I got very lucky. First showing I got to see of this was opening night, 35mm, projected on film, sold out, packed house, and A24, 9 out of 10 times, they're bringing something good to the table. This is actually directed by a Brady Corbet. Not at all familiar with his filmography. This is his fourth full feature-length film. Although funny enough, on IMDb, he's listed more. He's more well known as an actor, and he's most known for his roles as Peter in Funny Games, or as Tim in Melancholia, of neither of which I don't think I've heard about. Actor turned director, and now turned award-winning director after only making 4 films. So Monsieur Corbet has accomplished more than most directors do in their entire filmography. You can tell by the poster, or most of the posters for this film, Adrian Brody is the star power, known for many, 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 many roles. I'd say that The Pianist, IMDb says The Pianist, would even put one of my favorites up there, his role in Peter Jackson's King Kong, which for a while was my favorite film of all time. Slightly deeper cut. I don't know why I enjoyed his role so much in Peaky Blinders, but Luca Changreta. And also want to give a shout out to his lovely wife in this film, in the film that is, Felicity Jones here, a supremely talented actor who, for me, is always going to be my Stardust, my Jyn Erso, my Rogue One. Rogue One is what I know her from. It's a pretty stacked cast, but I got to admit, Guy Pearce. Guy Pearce is also great. A slew of other films. Old Peter Wayland here himself, in the flesh for this movie as well. Plays a very good Walt Disney-esque, Andrew Ryan-esque, rich, racist, questionably motivated business mogul. There's a lot to get into. I pretty much already summed up the movie at the start of this review. It's a 3.5 hour drama about a foreign architect who, in this case, this film hails from Budapest, and he's forced to flee his country, German incursion and whatnot, and can't take his wife with him yet. So he's stuck trying to make his means in America. He's an architect, but he's not fully licensed yet. And through some highs and lows, eventually a serendipitous offer gets dropped into his lap, a la Guy Pearce's character.
I do not know what the commission entails.
We'll talk about the details at home, but you'll be well compensated.
And it's an offer to build an extravagant structure, and in doing so, he's offered many benefits for the job, including the possibility of being reunited with his wife and even his niece being brought over to the States to join him. And there we have our film. And you'd think it wouldn't work on paper, but I tell you what, this movie, I've seen this twice now in theaters, and most likely I'm gonna go see it a third time because my gal pal still hasn't seen it. I saw it once in 35mm, opening night, on film, and I think that fit perfectly. I saw it again in a very, very, very limited IMAX release that I like the movie so much I wanted to see it in a premium 4K format because it's originally filmed on 35mm, and that is converted to digital for all the digital showings. I feel like seeing it on 35mm since they brought back VistaVision to make this film, which, by the way, do a little history digging like I did. VistaVision is goated.
8-perf 35mm format that was developed, I think, by Paramount in the 1950s. It is, of course, a technology that was, that was developed during the time when the movie is set. Its field of view is quite extraordinary, which is to say that you can be on a 50mm lens, which is like what you would photograph, the human face with, essentially. And if you were at the corner and very close in proximity to a 6-story building, VistaVision's field of view could contain the entire building inside of its frame.
And it really does this film justice in a visual sense. It was worth it for me. For a 3.5-hour film, doesn't feel like it. You do not feel the length. And that is saying something. I have seen hour-and-a-half long films that feel like 4, but the mark of a great film, in my opinion, something like The Batman or something like Everything Everywhere All at Once. The mark of a good long film, like I saw The Irishman, right? That one is a fine film, but just doesn't quite do it for me. This one, came and went. The movie flows, the pacing's great, it's enticing, it's interesting, it's emotional. Let's just get into the pros and cons, shall we? The score, oh my god, I've never emailed A24's concierge email line with a question about merchandise as soon the orchestral score. Feels so hopeful and magnanimous, but also can be kind of eerie at times, and so much of the film can be seen as bleak and potentially hopeless, but this score, this orchestral score, is able to bring hope and lift you out of that. And just whether it's a historical reel about Pittsburgh Steel, or watching this immigrant husband trying to do what he does best and apply his art and his skill and talent into building something grand and magnanimous for a community. And the entire film doesn't always constantly have the orchestral backing, but when it does, boy howdy is it impactful. Performances, worth all the buzz I'm hearing about it. I haven't done my video yet for Oscar nominations, but when I did my one for the Golden Globes, Brutalist certainly had a bunch, and it's all well deserved. Not a single poor or questionable performance. Every single performance in this film, to a T, great stuff. Aside from the visual aesthetic of this film and admiring buildings and landscapes and the progress of mankind and whatnot, it's just in rooms. It's very Succession-like, in rooms with people, whether it's the wealthy elite, the bourgeoisie, the proletariat. Listening and watching these conversations play out is enticing enough. And that's due in part, largely in part, to the performances.
Did not realize these images were still available. Much less of any consequence. May I keep these?
Put in here as well, it's a marvelous story of the immigrant experience, warts and all, better or for worse. Movies like this are always important to be made because, I am not an immigrant. I was born here. I'm pretty privileged. I recognize that. I'm pretty lucky. It wasn't until I traveled myself out of the country for the first time where I realized what it is like to be a foreigner in a foreign land and to kind of feel that sense. Not that you're not wanted there, but that you could almost like be a burden, you're in the way, you're like, you feel vulnerable because you're not sure how to communicate, or your survival is based on the kindness of others oftentimes. So this film also demonstrates that. There's a lot of xenophobia nowadays, and it's important to watch a film like this and hopefully have the immigrant experience recontextualized for you if you're struggling to grasp it. Like, it's important. Where I grew up on Schoolhouse Rock. I don't know about you guys and gals, but there was a song, Great American Melting Pot.
They brought the country's customs, their language and their ways. They filled the factories to the soil, helped build the USA.
That's what makes this country great, in my opinion, is that it's a little bit of everybody. That's the whole effing point. So there's always going to be those parts of our culture that are resistant to it. And this shows kind of that like casual racism, if that makes any sense.
Perhaps you can help your husband sound less like he shines shoes for a wage. Laszlo, how long have you been here now? 4, 5 years? You have no excuse anymore.
And not only does the film commentate on that, but also, classism and the disparity between those that are trying to just survive in this country and those that are just, thriving. It's surprisingly funny. Like, it's not a comedy, wouldn't classify it as such, but there's so many, like, either darkly funny lines or double meaning lines that just one way or another lead to the audience laughing, or like you'll find yourself chuckling. There's some genuine moments of comedy and comedic reprieve that are just dark enough where what is happening you can't help but laugh. The only negative points I had about this film, the main character's wife and niece, I do wish that they both got a bit more development. And I'm not saying they're not developed, I just want more. I just wanted to see more out of those characters. In particular, our main character's niece. I would have liked to have gotten more from her. Not that she had to have said more, but just I was interested. I wanted to hear or see more of her story. I'm greedy. I would have liked more. I would have wished there was more, but it's more of a personal gripe. At first, I was 100% on board for the ending of the film. There's aspects of the film's ending that are both left up to interpretation, but also kind of like stop the movie's narrative in its tracks and then jumps to a conclusion. At first I was down for the ending, and then I talked about it more with my fellow cinephiles afterwards, and like, we accept it, but something just kind of rubs us the wrong way about it. Not like in like a way, but more in like a like a okay, sure. It just prevents it from being a perfect film, Like, it was going so well, and it was such a swimmingly delightful, engaging feature. And then the ending happens, and you're like, oh, okay, well, cool. I guess that's the end.
There he is.
I've been teetering on the edge of what to give this film, and especially after thinking about it more and thinking about the fact that this film does so much more right than it would even think about doing incorrectly. It doesn't do much wrong in my mind. With those being the only two notes, one of those being personal preference and the other one being a legitimate complaint about the film, if that's all that I have to say about it, then I would be very confident in just giving The Brutalist a high 4 out of 5, honestly. Another high 4 out of 5. It's very well deserving of what I believe is its Best Picture nomination. It is a fantastic film. I recommend seeing it. I myself enjoyed it. That's all I gotta say about The Brutalist. Thank you guys and gals so much for watching. Hopefully this setup is doing something for anybody out there. Thank you so much. Have a good day, have a good night, and goodbye, travelers.